From the terrace of a luxury restaurant on the 40th floor, Sofia Martin, a 26-year-old secretary, waits with sweaty palms and a pounding heart. She's just spent her last 500 euros, all to rent a fake boyfriend. She needs to pretend to have a life she doesn't have, even if it's just for one night. The date is at the restaurant La Azotea. Beyond the window, Madrid glitters with the lights of an expensive city, and she, wearing a borrowed blue dress and carrying someone else's purse, feels like an imposter. Then she sees him. He comes in. "Hi, Sofia," the man says with a calm smile. "I'm Alejandro, your boyfriend for the night." He's perfect. Tall, elegant, self-confident. Sofia hands him an envelope with the money, but he rejects it. "I can't accept it." "Why?" "It's our agreement. Because I'm the CEO of the company where you work." Sofia pales. She's just hired her boss as a hired companion. She doesn't know whether to laugh, faint, or run away. It all started the day before. Sofia works as a secretary at Herrera Industries, a multinational company located in one of Madrid's most impressive skyscrapers. Her salary barely reaches 1,000 euros a month. She lives in a tiny studio in Carabanchel and survives on rice, discounts, and dignity. But the worst part isn't the poverty. It's Carmen, her older sister, rich, cruel, and married to a millionaire lawyer who adores her. "I hope you bring someone presentable to the anniversary dinner tomorrow," she told her on the phone. "No more excuses. It's time to stop making a fool of yourself, sis." Sofia hung up in tears. That night, desperate, she visited a website for event escorts. The price, 500 euros. Her account had 547, and she clicked. The profile read, Alejandro H., 32 years old, businessman, discreet, elegant, ideal for family events. Sofia hesitated, but her dignity outweighed her fear. She wrote, "I need a date for a family dinner tomorrow. Just presents. Nothing more." The response came back within 10 minutes. "Perfect. See you at La Azotea at 8. But the humiliation of appearing alone before Carmen once again was worse than any embarrassment. She spent her last 50 euros on a simple dress. She borrowed a purse and used makeup tutorials to appear confident. At 8:07 p.m. sharp, she arrived at the restaurant. Carmen was already there with her husband and other family members. "Where is that mysterious boyfriend?" she asked sarcastically. Sofia could barely answer. Then Alejandro appeared, tall with perfectly combed brown hair, intense blue eyes, a suit that cost more than Sofia's entire annual salary. "Sorry for the delay," he said naturally, taking Sofia's hand and kissing it politely. Traffic was impossible. During dinner, Alejandro charmed everyone. He talked about investments, art, travel. Carmen, for the first time, had nothing to criticize. "Sofia, finally someone at your level," she said, surprised. But Sofia began to get suspicious. Alejandro seemed to know too much about her life. How did he know which department she worked in? How did he know the inside details of Herrera Industries? At the end of the night, she took out the envelope with the 500 euros. "Here's what we agreed on." He shook his head. "I can't accept it. Because I'm Alejandro Herrera, the CEO of your company." And in that instant, all the air left her lungs. Would you like to live a story like that? Like, comment if you've ever faked something to protect your dignity, and subscribe so you don't miss out on what's next. Sofia felt the floor beneath her feet disappear. Alejandro Herrera, her boss, the inaccessible billionaire on the 45th floor. Was that the man she'd hired as a fake boyfriend? You're my boss," she whispered, her voice cracking. "And you're the secretary in the administrative department who always goes unnoticed. Until today." Sofia froze. She didn't know whether to run away or apologize between sobs. "Why did you agree?" she finally asked, her eyes fixed on his. "Curious. Seeing your name, I had to know why one of my employees needed to hire company for a family dinner." "Oh my God," Sofia exclaimed, bringing her hands to her face. "You're going to fire me on Monday, right?" Alejandro burst out laughing. "Fire you? Sofia, this has been the most fun night I've had in years." "Fun? I'm mortified. Your sister is cruel. Your family worse. But you've handled it all with a grace that left me speechless." She didn't know if he was being sincere or simply trying to soften the impact of what she'd just revealed. "And why didn't you ever speak to me at the office?" he asked as they walked toward the restaurant's exit. "Because you're the billionaire CEO and I'm a secretary with a ridiculous salary. We have nothing in common. Who made you think money determines a person's worth?" "The world," she replied without hesitation. Alejandro looked at her tenderly. There was something about her that disarmed him, a truth he wasn't used to finding in his environment of luxury and appearances. "The world makes mistakes," he said. That night, Sofia couldn't sleep. Not just because of the embarrassment, but because of the way he'd looked at her. Not like a boss looks at an employee, but like a man looks at a woman he's interested in. On Monday morning, Sofia arrived at the office with her stomach in knots and her cheeks flushed. She imagined the worst-case scenarios: dismissal, public humiliation, the entire building knowing what she'd done. But when she got to her desk, she found a bouquet of white flowers. The card read simply, "Thank you for the most interesting evening in years." Sofia looked around nervously. Had anyone seen it? Did they know something? No one seemed to suspect. Her colleagues were working as usual. But at 10:07, the CEO's personal assistant approached. "Sofia, Dr. Herrera wants to see you in his office." Sofia's heart almost stopped. She went up to the 45th floor. She took a deep breath. She knocked on the door. "Come in," Alejandro said from inside. He was immaculate, sitting behind a shiny wooden desk, surrounded by large windows that overlooked all of Madrid. "Mr. Herrera, I know what happened was inappropriate." "Sofia, please." Alejandro stood up and walked to the window. "I thought a lot yesterday. About what happened. And about what I felt." "What did you feel?" "I felt like for the first time in a long time, someone treated me like a man. Not like a walking bill." She looked at him silently, not understanding. "You tried to pay me back, Sofia. That was the most sincere thing that's happened to me in years." Alejandro returned to his desk and picked up a piece of paper. "I want to ask you out. But this time, for real. Not as boss and secretary, not as client and escort. Just you and me." Sofia was speechless. "Are you sure?" "Very. Do you accept? Do you also believe that love can spring up in the most unexpected place?" Like, subscribe to the channel, and comment with if someone has ever changed your life when you least expected it. "I accept," Sofia said, her voice trembling but firm. "And there's something else," Alejandro added, opening a folder on his desk. "I've been reviewing your resume. Bachelor's degree in economics with honors. Master's degree in business management. Why are you working for an administrative secretarial office?" Sofia lowered her gaze. "I looked for a job for months. And when I ran out of money, I accepted the first thing I found." "You're wasting your talent." She looked at him, not knowing how to respond. "I want to offer you a position as head of strategic development. 42nd floor. Private office. Personal assistant. Salary, 5,000 euros per month." Sofia opened her eyes thinking she'd heard wrong. 5,000? Yes. She fainted. Literally. She fell back in the leather chair. Alejandro ran to her and splashed water on her face. "Are you okay?" It's 4 times what I earn now. And yet, it's worth less than you." Sofia smiled, tears in her eyes. "But if people know, they'll think you promoted me because we're together. And we're together? You haven't kissed me yet." "Then, not yet. Then, not yet. Then, not yet." Alejandro leaned closer and gently took her hands. "Sofia, you're the first person who saw me as a human being and not as a bank account. And that is worth more than any title." She remained silent. But inside her chest, her heart screamed yes, that he was different. That it wasn't about money, but about dignity, and about something that perhaps was becoming too similar to love. That night, Alejandro accompanied her to her small studio in Carabanchel, barely 35 square meters but clean, tidy and filled with used books. When they walked through the door, he looked around in surprise. "You live here?" "Yes. I know, it's tiny. Your bathroom is probably bigger." "Yes," he said, looking at every corner. "But there's something here I don't have at home." "What thing?" "Warmth. Life. Reality." Sofia poured 2 cups of tea. They sat on the tiny sofa. The silence wasn't awkward. It was cozy. "Did you really want to come?" she asked. "I wanted to know what your world is like. And I'll be honest. I like it more than I imagined. Sofia lowered her gaze. Sometimes I feel like I don't fit in anywhere. You fit in perfectly with me. Even if I earn 1,000 euros and live in this cube, even if you earned €1 and lived in a cardboard box. The important thing isn't where you live, it's who you are. She didn't know what to say. Neither did he. They just stared at each other, until Alejandro whispered, "Sofia, can I kiss you?" She nodded. The first kiss was soft, slow, true. And then, something changed. They were no longer CEO and secretary, no longer lies and facades. They were two people who, without seeking it, had found themselves in the middle of an unlikely story, and although neither of them said it out loud, they both knew, this wasn't the end, it was just the beginning. A week after that first kiss, Sofia officially started her new position as head of strategic development. A bright office on the 42nd floor, a modern desk, a personal assistant, a stunning view of Madrid, and a knot in her stomach, because the whispers weren't long in coming. "Have you heard?" They whispered in the elevator. "The one on the 5th floor, she's now in management. They say she's sleeping with Herrera. She must have promoted him out of self-interest." Sofia gulped every time she passed a group of colleagues. Still, she stood firm. She prepared her first presentation with weeks of analysis, figures and projections. During the board meeting, eyes were all on her, some curious, others condescending. One, Alejandro's, was full of silent support. "Good morning, I'm Sofia Martin," she said. "Today I present the expansion plan for subsidiaries in Germany and France. The room fell silent as she spoke. Data, strategy, projected results. Sofia was different, clear, determined, convincing. When she finished, there was a moment of pause, and then, applause. "Congratulations, Dr. Martin," said the financial director. "Your project is impeccable." Sofia returned to her office, feeling she had taken a giant step forward. Shortly after, Alejandro called her. "You've been fantastic," she said. "Thank you, but I know what they're saying about me. It bothers me too," he replied. "Do you want us to go public with our relationship?" Sofia hesitated. "If we do, they'll think we're confirming the rumors, and if not, we'll live in hiding." "I'm not ashamed of you, Sofia, nor am I, but I'm afraid they'll see me as just the boss's girlfriend. Then let's wait. Let your results speak for you, and when no one can deny it, we'll show ourselves to the world." She nodded. What neither Sofia nor Alejandro knew was that someone already knew everything. Carmen, Sofia's sister, showed up unannounced one night at Alejandro's chalet. He and Sofia were quietly having dinner, when the door opened, and her presence burst in like an elegant storm. "Sofia," Carmen exclaimed, "we need to talk." "How did you get in?" "I told the butler I'm your sister." "Is that true? Are you with Alejandro Herrera?" Sofia looked at Alejandro. He nodded calmly. "Yes, it's true," she said. "I can't believe it. My little sister with one of the richest men in Spain." "Carmen, this isn't what you're thinking." "What am I thinking? That you finally did something intelligent." Alejandro stood up diplomatically. "Are you Carmen Martin? Then I must thank you. If it weren't for that family dinner, Sofia and I would never have met." Carmen smiled as if she'd just won a trophy. "When are you officially announcing your engagement?" Sofia and Alejandro looked at each other. "We're together," she said, "but we're in no rush." "Don't be in a rush. He's perfect," Carmen shouted. Delight. That night, when Carmen left, Sofia sat thoughtfully in the garden. Alejandro hugged her from behind. "Your family is intense." "I know. I'm sorry. Don't apologize. But I need to know something." "What? Do you love me for who I am? Or for what I have?" Sofia looked at him in surprise. "How can you ask me that?" "Because all the women I've known before, all they wanted was my money." She took his hands. "Alejandro, I loved you when I thought you were a €500 escort." He smiled. "I fell in love with the way you spoke, the way you smiled, the way you looked at me. I didn't even know who you were." He kissed her. "So yes, love is real. I'm proud to love you." "Are you sure?" "Absolutely sure." The next day, they arrived at the office together, for the first time, hand in hand. As soon as they entered the building, the murmur was immediate. But Sofia didn't lower her head. At 10,000 sharp, Alejandro called a general meeting. The conference room was filled with all the headquarters employees. "Good morning," he began. "I have an important announcement. Sofia Martin and I are in a relationship." The murmur was instantaneous. "I know some of you might think this affects work decisions, but Sofia has been promoted on merit, and she will continue to grow, because of her talent." Sofia stood firmly by his side. After the meeting, the comments changed tone. The operations director approached her. "You're a beautiful couple. And you're truly brilliant at your job." Even the financial director smiled. "The expansion project was one of the best I've seen this year." Sofia felt light, as if she could finally breathe in her new role without the shadow of prejudice following her. That evening, Alejandro prepared a special dinner on the terrace of the chalet. Madrid glittered below them like a map of infinite lights. "Are you happy?" he asked, pouring her a glass of wine. "I'm so happy. I have the job of my dreams, and the man I never dreamed of having." "Sofia," Alejandro said with a trembling smile, "there's one last thing I want to ask you." I have knelt down. He took out a small box. Inside, a ring with a diamond that reflected all the lights of the city. "Will you marry me?" Sofia couldn't hold back her tears. Yes. Sofia's yes rang out like a bell of freedom, of worthiness, of a love that shattered all expectations. They embraced in silence, without the need for words. Under the stars of Madrid, two worlds that seemed opposite merged into one. The next day, the news spread like wildfire throughout the company. The CEO marries a former secretary. The media also echoed it. Some celebrated, others murmured, but Alejandro and Sofia were no longer worried about what others would say. While the wedding preparations progressed, Sofia continued working like a brilliant executive. International sales increased by 14%, thanks to her expansion plan, and she received an invitation to speak at the European Congress of Women Leaders. One night, while she was rehearsing her speech, Alejandro watched her from the couch in admiration. "You know," he said, "I fell in love with you at that dinner, not for what you intended to be, but for the way you survived with dignity." Sofia smiled without taking her eyes off the paper. "And I fell in love with you when I discovered that the company's most feared CEO was also the most humane man I've ever met." The wedding was intimate, but unforgettable. No press, no extravagances, just family, true friends, and an oath that seemed ripped from a novel. "I promise you," Alejandro said, "that I will never stop seeing the woman who was willing to spend her last 500 euros for dignity." Sofia, her voice breaking with emotion, replied, "And I promise you that I will never forget that behind the suit and the position, you were always the man who treated me as if I were worth millions, even when I had nothing." And so, the most absurd lie became the profoundest truth. A month after the wedding, Sofia and Alejandro began a new chapter, not just as a couple, but as partners. Together they decided to transform part of Herrera Industries' fortune into something more than dividends. "I want to create a scholarship program," Sofia said, "for girls who, like me, studied hard but ended up forgotten at a desk. Do it. The project will be called Sofia Boot." In less than 6 months, 50 young women gained access to higher education, mentorship, and international training. At each award ceremony, Sofia spoke with humility and truth. "I was invisible too, until someone believed in me." The media stopped talking about the secretary who married the boss, and started calling her one of the most relevant voices of female leadership in Europe. One night, at home, while Sofia was working on her laptop, Alejandro approached with a cup of tea. "You know what's strange?" "What?" "That first night, when you arrived in your blue dress, trembling, and you showed up with that impossible suit and that perfect executive smile, and you were so real, so you, and you were." They stood hugging, remembering what seemed like a past life, because it had all started with a mistake, with a lie, with an envelope of 500 euros. And yet there they were, building a story that not even the most daring love story could have imagined. And yet, the best was yet to come. As the months passed, Sofia established herself as much more than the CEO's wife. Her proposals were firm, her presentations impeccable, and her ideas revolutionary. During a meeting with international investors, one of the senior entrepreneurs commented, "I must admit, I thought she was just a pretty face, but she's brilliant."
Alejandro smiled from his seat. He no longer needed to defend her. Sofia shone on her own. One night, after a long day, they went out for a walk through the streets of Madrid, without bodyguards, without a chauffeur, just them. The city belonged to them. Do you think this is forever? She asked, looking at the lights on the balconies. I don't think so, he replied. I know. Sofia looked at him with that calm love that doesn't need grand displays. What if everything is lost tomorrow? The money, the company, the power. As long as I have you, I won't have lost anything. They returned to the small studio in Carabanchel, where Sofia still kept a corner. There was her first borrowed bag, her books, the cracked mirror where she learned to apply makeup. Why do you keep it? Alejandro asked. Because here I understood my worth, even if I had nothing. They hugged by the tiny window, looking out at the distant lights of downtown. I love you, he said, and I love you, but promise me something. Promise me that if one day we forget where we came from, we'll come back here, to remember it. Alejandro looked at her tenderly. Promise. On the anniversary of their first meeting, Alejandro surprised Sofia with an intimate dinner, at the same restaurant where it all began. La Sote. The same table, the same view of Madrid lit up. The difference was that this time there were no lies, only the truth. Do you remember how my hands were shaking that night? Sofia laughed. And how you almost fainted when I told you I was the CEO? And do you remember how you offered me the envelope with the money? Of course. It was the most humiliating and liberating thing at the same time. It was the moment I fell in love with you. Sofia, not because she didn't know, but because she was still surprised by how much that man could love her, the same one who had once been on a rental boyfriend's show. Do you realize it all started with a lie? Yes, he replied. But sometimes the most absurd lies reveal the deepest truths. After dinner, they walked through the streets as if they were two strangers playing at falling in love for the first time. They stopped at a shop window, and saw their reflection in the glass. She in her business coat, he in his elegant gray overcoat. Who would have thought the poor secretary and the CEO would end up here? Sofia murmured. I wouldn't have believed it. But now I wouldn't change a thing. Not even the shame of having rented me? Not even, because if you hadn't had the courage to pretend a different life, I would never have discovered who you really were. Sofia hugged him, not because she needed to, but because she wanted to. And in that hug, everything they had lived through, everything they had lost, and everything they had gained. A year later, Sofia and Alejandro received the Business Couple of the Year award for their social impact program. But for them, the awards were only an outward reflection of something deeper. The real victory lay elsewhere, having found each. What would you like to do now? Alejandro asked her, one night as they watched the rain from the terrace of the chalet. Help women who are afraid to dream, like me? And she did. Sofia created a mentoring network for young people at risk of exclusion. She gave lectures, wrote a book, and every time a woman said, "Thank you for inspiring me," she remembered that dinner, that cheap blue dress and the 47 euros left in her account. But the story didn't end there. One afternoon she received an unexpected message from Carmen. I need to talk to you, I'm alone. Sofia took a deep breath. She responded with an address. An hour later, Carmen arrived at the same studio in Carabanchel. Did you live here? Yes. I broke up. I lost everything. Sofia hugged her, without reproach. Then it's time to start over, she said. Alejandro watched her from the doorway silently. Then he whispered in her ear, you didn't just change my life, you're changing so many more. Sofia smiled, not like before, from insecurity, but from the certainty of knowing who she was. Because that 500 euro lie wasn't a fall, it was the impulse. And because sometimes the most impossible stories are the only true ones.